Hello, everybody. Welcome to my presentation. I hope you enjoy it and you get something out of it. And then in the end, I'll be glad to discuss the presentation with you face to face. So let's get started. Originally, I had planned this title for my presentation, but yeah, this is the original title. But as you know, a lot of things happened since we first submitted our abstract. So I decided to update the title of my presentation to exploring a participatory approach to multilingualism and multilingual identity with school children, which is more in tune with what we're going to be discussing today, including the visuals you saw me playing with at the beginning of the presentation, but this is still somehow connected to the original theme of the presentation. So let me just introduce ourselves. We're the UNGSPROC Research Project, a multi-phased mixed method study conducted at the Department of Foreign Languages, University of Bergen. So in the first phase, the aim of the project is to study multilingualism and multilingual identity in lower secondary schools in Norway. In the first phase of the project, 593 students answered to an online questionnaire from 7 different schools. The students were. The questionnaire asked them a lot of questions about language habits, language learning, what they think about languages, etc. What we're going to be focusing on today is the second, what we did in one of the phases, one of the stages in the second phase of the project, which are interactive sessions based on answers from the pupils from the first phase using data visualization. So basically, students were interpreting data they helped generate via data visualizations. Some underlying principles to our interactive sessions: ethics. Why did we do it? We wanted to give something back to the students because that's not usually the case in large to big scale studies, especially quantitative studies. Knowledge, we wanted them to reflect on their reflections, and that by reflecting on their answers about multilingualism, what it means to be multilingual, if they identify with being multilingual or not. So this knowledge would increase their own awareness of multilingualism, multilingual identity, and also improve our knowledge of the data. And ultimately, by making them reflect about the multiple possibilities of defining multilingualism and the multiple possibilities of self-identification as a multilingual speakers, that ultimately these reflections would lead to an improved awareness of their multilingual identities and possibly have a positive impact in their language learning trajectories. So this is the practical side of things, getting down to what we did. The question we posed ourselves was how to present research findings to school children in such a way that they're engaged in exploring the data and have autonomy in interpreting the findings, and that their engagement and autonomy fosters a broader understanding of multilingualism and multilingual identity. So we just not wanted to present them with data, said these are the results, what do you think? But we want them to interact with the data, draw conclusions about the data, discuss among peers, discuss with researchers. In other words, something more interactive and more reflective. So this is what we see at the top are the two print screens from the original questions from the questionnaire. And this is what they became, 2 different sets of data visualizations based on their answers. So what I would like you to do next is spend a little time exploring those visuals, because it will be easier to understand the mechanics of the visuals when I explain it to you. So I wanted to pause this video and maybe just copy this link on another tab on your browser, spend a few minutes browsing, and then when you get back, I'll explain some of the one of the visuals to you. Okay, thank you. Right, welcome back. So I hope you had some time to explore the visuals. Let me just introduce the main visual to you. This is the visuals, one of the main visuals that represents the answers to the students to what to be multilingual means. So the basic concept we work here is bubbles within bubbles. It's a multi-phased bubble graph. So here you have subcategories within larger categories. So these categories here on the left are static, they cannot be moved, and they're grouped according to the verbs students used in the sentences. The same happens with the categories on the right. The categories the students played with were actually the ones in the middle, which represent longer sentences, longer answers to the question to be multilingual means. And here they worked in pairs in the sessions, and we asked them to categorize different answers according to what they had in common. And we, of course, we aided them, gave them some tips. I'm not going to go over each of the categories here, but they more or less cover virtually all aspects of multilingualism studied in academia. Then a second level of the visuals is they saved their results and then they compared with the way we categorized their answers. So the idea here is not to give them right or wrong, but just to help them, just to give them some feedback, and also to show them how rich their answers were, and the different aspects of multilingualism their answers cover. When we get to the discussion of the data, we're going to focus on this category here, using languages and the family. Yeah. And then one last level of the visualization were prompts. So here students could just browse through the visuals, and we asked them to decide one category they had something to say about, discuss with a partner, and write their answers on a survey, on an online survey. So basically, this is what the visuals are all about, or this set of visuals. So now going to data analysis, or actually to data discussion. Let me, yeah, this is what happened in the interactive sessions. This is where the interactive sessions happened. So when students answered the questionnaire, they were in year 8. When they interacted with the visuals in the sessions, they were in year 10. And these are the details for the interactive sessions. Okay, this is the type of data we collected during the sessions. And now I wanted to present some discussion, discuss with you some of the results. Of course, we're going to have to focus our discussions on some findings because that's a lot of data. So starting with the categories that interacted, we had 52 answers to different categories. Remember, they were working in pairs, but this category here, languages in the family, had the most answers, 19 answers. So we're focused on this because they explore an important aspect of multilingualism in the Norwegian context, because of this word flerspråklig, or multilingual, in Norway, usually in educational context, is associated with students with immigrant background who struggle to learn Norwegian, so therefore having assigning a negative connotation to the term. So we wanted to know what students knew about, thought about it. And this is the prompt they answered to. Many multilinguals use different languages in the family. Would you say that a person who uses only one language at home can also be multilingual? Explain why or why not. In Norway, it is common to call people with immigrant background multilingual. Can you think of other people who can also be called multilingual? So here are some of their reflections about these prompts, starting with this one, which I think is very interesting. The respondent said, you do not have to be an immigrant to be defined as multilingual. For example, you may have a Norwegian mother and an Indian father. You are from Norway, so you are not an immigrant, but you can also speak Indian. Most people have parents from different countries, tend to learn both languages. So you could say that the respondent misinterpreted the answer, because this person he describes, or she describes, would also be considered with an immigrant background. But I think the respondent has a more nuanced view of language learning and belonging, that that challenges this view of multilingual speakers as deficient, let's say, speakers who struggle to learn Norwegian. Another answer, very interesting. I think here the respondent, one advantage of using real data is that students can relate the data to their own lives, to their own experiences. This answer here, the respondent said, I myself sometimes talk a Filipino language with my mother at home. I believe that if someone doesn't speak more than one language at home, then they aren't classified as flashsprachlig because they don't usually use it. But of course, it depends on how much they use another language outside home too. So he starts by agreeing that multilinguals use languages at home, but then in the end, in his reflection, he concludes that what actually makes a person multilingual is the frequency of contact with the language, which is, of course, is facilitated when you use languages at home. So moving on, so this is another part of the data that we collected. We asked, this is from the questionnaire, yeah, and these are the answers to the prompt, are you multilingual? During the sessions, we asked students to guess. How many students answered yes, no, or not sure. And after they guessed and we discussed their guesses, we asked them this question. In total, 55 students said they were not multilingual. Does that number surprise you? Were you expecting it to be higher or lower? And why? So we have some interesting answers also for this. Most students said they weren't surprised. So some answers, 6 answers out of a set of 55 answers mentioned learning a third language at school, which is common in lower secondary school in Norway. So here's a typical answer. It really wasn't that surprising. We in Norway learn 3 languages at school, and we understand most of Danish and Swedish. So I understand why there were not so many who are not multilingual. So he mentions here the fact of language learning at school, plus these languages Norwegians know by typological proximity, like Danish and Swedish. But then some other answers followed a different pattern, which I think is quite interesting as well. For example, this one, I was not surprised by this number. Everyone at school learns English and probably knows Norwegian from before. Most people consider people who speak 2 or more languages to be multilingual. I thought maybe the number would be a little lower. So the number of students who said no. So here, this answer points to, okay, let's not forget that these are students interpreting the data. The way they interpret it is that speaking 2 languages, Norwegian and English, that they learn at school from year 1 is enough to be considered multilingual. Here is another answer that follows the same pattern, but somehow diverges from being surprised or not surprised. So honestly, I was expecting the number to be a bit higher. I was surprised. Personally, I'm not sure whether speaking 2 languages qualify as being multilingual. Therefore, my answer was not sure. After seeing the results, I believe students generally think speaking 2 or more languages is enough to be called multilingual. So here the participant reflects about his or her own condition as well. So I think it's a very interesting reflection as well. But another interesting reflection we found, I do not think you are multilingual by having learned another language through school. So I was surprised when I saw how many said they were multilingual. So here the student actually thinks learning a language, you have to, there's more needed to be considered multilingual, but he doesn't actually say what, but he interprets the data the same way, but somehow diverges from the conclusions the other participants drew from the data. So this is just a general overview of the data we collected. I'm really looking forward to discussing this with you face to face when we meet. If you want to find more about the interactive sessions and the visuals, this is our website where we discuss them in detail. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and that this gives some insights on what students think about language learning and in different contexts, and in school, and that this somehow advances the discussions on multilingual schooling. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and I hope I'll see you soon.